make mistakes and suffer with points deductions in the past, and Manchester United need to make sure they're not one of those sides that fall foul to the rules. But the good thing for them is they're not in Europe this season, and I say good thing because when you're in Europe, you have two sets of financial rules you have to respect. PSR from the Premier League and UEFA's FFP, Financial Fair Play. And they are very different rules, similar in one respect, but very different. But those teams in Europe have to make sure they abide by those FFP European rules. The fact that they don't have European football means they don't have to worry about it this season. However, they still have a PSR deadline of next year, so they have got time to make sure they make sales.
But they also don't want players in the squad that they don't want, do they? So who are the ones, Michael, that should be, or we think might be heading for the exit door?
Yeah, I think this is a club reset for Manchester United. It's unthinkable a club of United size not being in Europe. You just think this one season, it might do them a little bit of good. Let's talk about the players potentially on the way out. These are big names, more importantly, big wages. Let's start with Alejandro Garnacho, who Ruben Amorim's been quite vocal in the sense that he probably needs a fresh challenge. And who is the club they're expecting a formal offer from? And that club is Chelsea. And United want around £50 million. Now, United are aware of Chelsea's interest in the forward, and we know his future is likely to be away from Old Trafford. As we've reported, Chelsea are looking to sign Garnacho and Xavi Simons before the end of the window. So that's one key player potentially on his way out. Two more big names. One was a huge signing under Eric Ten Hag and Manchester United. It's just not worked out for him at all. But it did work out for him last season at Real Betis. They're pushing to still do this deal, but financially I think they're struggling at the moment. But United working with Betis to potentially do this deal. Anything United do, they want something with a permanent offer attached at the end of this. That includes Borussia Dortmund still trying to sign Jadon Sancho for a third time. But again, it comes down to these big players, big wages.
You meant Anthony there, didn't you?
Sorry, Anthony. Yes, my apologies.
Anthony mentioned. What about Højlund? Is he going to go if Sesko comes in? What do we think?
I don't think there's a guarantee on that, is there? You know, look, this is still someone who's had a tough couple of years, but I still say did pretty well, Rasmus Højlund, in his first season at Manchester United in the Champions League. I don't think there's a rush, but I do think there's a feeling if a club came in, maybe United would consider it.
Yeah, I think Manchester United have said to Rasmus Højlund, look, you know, we like you, we respect you. He wants to stay at the football club. He wants to fight for his place. However, as we've been discussing, financially, sometimes the accountants have more control over the football club than the manager or the head coach because they need to make sure they balance the books. And if someone goes to Manchester United, we know there's a lot of interest from 3 or 4 sides in Serie A, as well as Saudi Arabia and other teams in the Bundesliga. So there are clubs that are queuing up saying, we'll take Rasmus Højlund. And if the offer was suitable, Manchester United may say, OK, we have to accept this and we'd like you to move on. He was in the discussion to go to RB Leipzig when they were talking about Benjamin Sesko. So there has been dialogue there about a potential departure from Old Trafford. The player's stance is quite simple, but ultimately finances may dictate where he ends up this season. You could potentially see him going on loan with an option because he'll be told, look, you're not going to get much game time here at Manchester United. We haven't got European football, so therefore there's less games. You might be on the bench a bit. It might be advisable that you look elsewhere, and this could be the right opportunity for you.
You've got to say, though, Ruben Amorim's going to be absolutely delighted to get Cunha, which was done very early, and Mbeumo and Sesko all done in time for their opening Premier League match against Arsenal.
Absolutely. And on the Cunha thing as well, that was done at the beginning of the window in a different PSR accounting period. So whilst the money that's spent, 200 million or so, actually 62.5 of that, amortised over 5 years, is in the previous set of accounts. So they've been quite clever to make sure they split their signings between 2 accounting periods.
Mark loves talking about accountants. I guess Liverpool's accountants must be loving it because there's another player on the way out, money coming in.
Yeah, Darwin Núñez on his way to the Saudi Pro League with Al Hilal. We told you yesterday that agreement was reached with a fee of 46.2 million. I think it's very popular with Liverpool supporters. They know how vocal he is when he's on the bench with Liverpool when he goes. But maybe there's that inconsistency there why Liverpool would always maybe consider a move. Look, people keep saying to me, look, Liverpool spent a lot of money, but they'll be getting out a player for 46.2 million. Luis Diaz.
So that's add-ons.
With the add-ons rising, it'll be 56.6. Yeah. That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money.
And Luis Diaz gone as well. So there will be changes in that forward line.
What now for Liverpool then? What do they do next?
It's a multi-million-dollar question, and I know where you're leading me, Mike, to a certain AI. But yeah, as far as Liverpool are concerned, they're in the market for attack-minded players because they need to replace Luis Diaz, they need to replace Darwin Núñez. So therefore, they are looking at potential players that can fill those voids. But what Arne Slot wants is versatility and flexibility in those attacking signings that they could still make. You look at that Liverpool squad, they have one number 9, Diogo Ekitike. That's it. Whereas when you look at what they had last season, they had Núñez, they had Jota, they had another player, number 9, it escapes me right now.
Núñez, Jota.
And who else has gone? There's third one.
Diaz has gone.
Diaz.
Yeah.
He played as a false 9 as well. So they've lost their options. So that's where they need to go into this window and have options. I want to point you out to one game. Back in February, you won't like me saying this, Liverpool went to the Etihad and won 2-0. They didn't play with you started it at the beginning of the show. You came from me and Michael. We're just coming back. They went to the Etihad, won 2-0. They did it without playing a number 9. Arne Slot is very comfortable with playing 2 10s and 2 wingers. Doesn't necessarily always have to have a number 9 playing for him. He's comfortable by playing 2 10s. On that day, it was Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones that played as the 2 10s for Liverpool. So therefore, saying they're going out into the market to find a number 9 because they've sold Núñez doesn't necessarily mean they're going to find a number 9. They could be looking for someone who can play multiple roles in that attack. One other thing I just want to say on the Liverpool situation. Rio Ngumoa, 16 years old, outstanding talent. Do Liverpool want to go and sign a left-sided player that stops the progression and development of someone who could be a superstar? And we've seen that in pre-season. No. They want to sign players that are versatile and flexible, and that's key. Also in the market for a centre-back. So I can see 2 more players going into Liverpool.
Right, because you're going to go at me, I'm going to do breaking news. I'm going to do your job. West Ham have agreed an £18 million fee for the Leicester goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen. Now, he'll now be available for Leicester's Championship opener against Sheffield Wednesday. He won't be available for that. He's expected to travel to London today and have a medical with West Ham tomorrow. So West Ham agreed an £18 million fee for the Leicester goalkeeper, Mads Hermansen. All right. Going back to strikers then, gentlemen. I tried to lead Mark into Alexander Isak. Let's talk Isak then. Where do we see this? Is there a possibility, Michael, that Isak starts the season wearing the black and white of Newcastle and plays first game?
If you're asking for me, I don't think so, because he's not featured with his teammates. He hasn't been part on pre-season tour. There's this talk of a minor injury, and we've got nearly just over a week to go. Look, they would love to have him. I can't see him, can you?
I can't see him playing. You know, you have
but
to be...
still being at the club, though?
Possibly still at the club. I don't think he'll start the game.
Yeah, I think Newcastle United won't sanction a move for Alexander Isak to any other club in the world unless they have what they feel is a top-class Champions League-ready striker to start games. You have to remember, they're actually in the market for a striker anyway because of the departure of Callum Wilson. So therefore, they're one striker light because of him. Alexander Isak not with that Eddie Howe first-team squad at the moment, so therefore, technically, they're 2 strikers light. And they're not going to suddenly just sell, even if the offer was huge, just to accept the money. They have to leave themselves in a position where they feel they are stronger at the start of the season than they were when they finished last season. And they won silverware and got into the Champions League. So therefore, any thought of Alexander Isak going without a replacement is silly. And really, to answer what Michael said, if people think that Alexander Isak is going to walk straight back into that first team and play that first game, I think they'd be naive. Eddie Howe has said he has to earn the right to train with his teammates. He has to earn the right to be in that starting 11. And right now, he's not amongst it. So therefore, you'd be really surprised if he suddenly was to start games.
And Eddie Howe will also know as well, when Newcastle qualified for the Champions League last time, as much as the fans enjoyed it, the league form was affected as well, and they missed out narrowly on Europe for the season after, though, didn't they? So they do need those extra bodies. All these clubs in Europe are going to need extra players.
It's a huge challenge because suddenly they've got 8 extra games in the Champions League. That could be 10, 12, 14, 16, depending on their progress. If they want to go and win the FA Cup and the League Cup, as they've already done and proven they want to do, that could add another 6, 8 9 games, depending on how much they progress as well in those competitions collectively. And to do that, to play the intensity of football that Eddie Howe wants to play, you need strength in depth. You need players that can be robust and play a number of games. So therefore, they would be a little bit light anyway. They need to replace Longstaff. So he's another midfielder they need to try and find. We know that they're in the market for a centre-back. They have made 2 brilliant signings. I think 2 players that will definitely challenge that first 11, Anthony Elanga and Aaron Ramsdale. So they are making good progress. It's just a lot slower than Eddie Howe would like.
Indeed. All right, we've got to take a break now. When we come back, we're going to talk Aston Villa. They've rejected a bid from another Premier League club for their captain. We'll discuss why Villa may sell next. See you in a moment. On the they are.
They sold their women's side
Yes.
at the end of June to make sure that they were PSR compliant.
Hello again, loads to fit in, so I'm going to get straight onto it. John McGinn, bid rejected. Tell us.
Yeah, as far as Aston Villa are concerned, John McGinn is not for sale, and that's after rejecting an Everton offer, which we understand to be £18 million for the 30-year-old Aston Villa captain. He's got 2 years left on his current Villa deal. Absolutely outstanding player for Aston Villa. And you can see why David Moyes wants him. We spoke about the lack of depth and quality perhaps in that Everton midfield and attacking areas. This is definitely an area of concern, and you can see why Moyes wants someone with those leadership, experience and versatility that he would offer in multiple positions. He brings everything, and he's an outstanding player. Unai Emery won't want to lose his captain and someone that's been so instrumental to what they've done over the last few years. He really is a proper player, but you can see why there is interest in someone of his ability and quality. We know that Newcastle United have also been interested in John McGinn, but are yet to make any club-to-club or formal offer, any club-to-club contact or formal offer for the player. So one to keep an eye on.
But Mark, why would Aston Villa let someone of that quality go?
Well, they won't want to lose.
Because you've just reeled off how good he is.
Yes.
Why would they sell their skipper?
I think Aston Villa are one of those sides that have to be mindful and respectful of the rules with regards to UEFA competition. As we said earlier in the show, PSR's Premier League, FFP is UEFA rules. They are operating in Europe, so they need, and the rules are slightly different. So whilst they are PSR compliant, as things stand, they need to make sure they're also FFP compliant. So therefore, they may be looking to sell players who represent good profit and good value so that they can reinvest into the squad and make sure they balance the books. I'm surmising that might be one of the situations. It certainly could be something like that, but they have to be astute, they have to be clever. They're one of those sides that have been outstanding over the course of the last few years, but for them, like Newcastle, to punch into that next level where they're not just getting in and around Europe, but getting into the Champions League, they need to invest. And to do that, they need to recycle money and be creative and be clever and continue to build on what they've done. But that's where it gets hard, because it's not just about writing blank cheques. You have to make sure you respect the rules.
OK, I want to move on. Bournemouth, are they going to lose yet another one of their best players?
Yeah, Michael puffed his cheeks there. I think Michael is symbolic of every single Bournemouth fan at the moment. This is a story that's been raging on since, I think, the beginning of June. 2 months later, Ilya Zabani has been training with his teammates at Bournemouth. He's been playing games in the US in the summer series. But as of yet, there's still no formal, completed, total agreement between the two clubs. But what do we know? Bournemouth and PSG are in advanced talks for the 22-year-old Ukrainian centre-back. We understand that £55 million as a guaranteed fixed fee has been agreed. But now the discussions centre around the add-ons. Bournemouth obviously trying to eke out as much as they possibly can from the European champions. The key thing is that that man, Ilya Zabani, wants to go to PSG, wants to join those in Paris. And we can see some of the business that Bournemouth have done. You just have to look at the money they've generated in sales there already.
That's not going to please Bournemouth fans. You can have all the money in the world, but those are good players gone.
Yeah, and the problem is it's part of their model. And what that means is they buy low, sell high, and Ilya Zabani is probably one that they thought will sell in the summer of 26. They probably didn't want to sell him alongside Dean Howson, who went to Real Madrid, and that's the problem. We'll talk more about this in the show at 7 o'clock. But there may be some positive news on the horizon about a potential incoming. Come back at 7. I may have some more information.
Oh, tease. We better come back, Michael. I was going to go home early. Let's talk Spurs, Michael. Maddison, dreadful, awful news. He's out. Kulusevski's out. They've got to get people in the door, haven't they?
Yeah. Look, firstly...
Was that Thomas Franklin with Brentford?
Yeah.
It's got Bridgie and went.
It's all right, Thomas, you are at Spurs, it's OK.
Well, Spurs are currently, they're about to play Bayern Munich, it's about to kick off in a minute. But it's devastating news for Spurs, devastating for James Maddison. I think Spurs knew, I think Maddison knew when he did it, he was on his own, it was innocuous. So, look, I think that's going to be the majority of the season. Really devastating for him. So we all wish him all the best. But Spurs have been looking for a number 10 before this happened anyway. We know, obviously, the Morgan Gibbs-White situation. So Spurs really have to ramp this up now. As we've said over the last few days, I think a number 10 and another defender, maybe a left left-footed defender potentially. But the 10 is the priority. There was reports earlier that Spurs had made a bid for Nico Paz from Como. My understanding is they've not made a bid, but there is interest there. Now, he's a very, very good player, but there's a bit of an issue. Real Madrid have a 50% sell-on clause. They've got a series of buyback options, so that wouldn't be an easy deal to do. There is interest, but for me, that's a difficult-looking one to do. But Spurs do want and need a number 10. They could start the season without, well, it's going to be about Maddison. They've said goodbye to Son. No Dejan Kulusevski, and Dominic Solanke is a major doubt. That is not ideal for Thomas Frank in his first weekend as Tottenham head coach. And there's a Super Cup final next Wednesday. Oh, my goodness.
There is, absolutely. I want to talk Burnley very quickly. Talk us through Dubravka in.
Yeah, he's completed his transfer from Newcastle United from Newcastle to Burnley after 7 seasons at Newcastle. So that's a sensible signing, I feel, for Scotty Parker after James Trafford going to Manchester City.
Yeah, totally agree.
And what about Breuer? Are they going to get him?
Yeah, it certainly feels like that. Everything is agreed between Burnley and Chelsea. Burnley just now in talks with his representatives about getting the personal terms sorted out. Optimism that this will be completed. Medical is sorted.
I have to tell people to come back at 7, but you've already done that. What is it we've got to come back for? What are you teasing us with?
Everything. Breaking news on all sorts of clubs.
He's forgotten already. Yeah, transfer show at 7. There is so much going on. Stay tuned with us for that. And when we come back, we're going to talk Ballon d'Or. Sports Centre, and we begin with news from Tottenham. Not great news. The club has confirmed that James Maddison has suffered a serious knee injury which requires surgery. He sustained the injury on Sunday in the latter stages of a pre-season friendly against Newcastle in South Korea. He'd only made a couple of substitute appearances in pre-season as he was recovering from a previous knee injury which kept him out of the Europa League final at the end of last season.
I feel for him. He's going to be right now so devastated for a couple of big reasons. Because number one, he wants to play under the new manager. Number two, of course, he wants to be on the pitch. Every footballer wants to be on the pitch. And then the other thing is, long term, this is a World Cup year. You know, at the end of the season, you're playing for a spot because he's going to be thinking, can I play for England? Can I go to a World Cup? And unfortunately, the type of injury that he's got is pretty much the whole season. We'll be lucky to see him again this season. Unfortunately, we hope it's as soon as possible and it's quick. But you're talking cruciates normally at least 6 months, and that's fast.
Yeah, and there's bad news at Chelsea as well. Enzo Maresca has confirmed that Levi Colwill